Britain once set out to build the most advanced assault rifle on Earth, a weapon that would prove the UK still led the world in engineering, design, and modern battlefield innovation. What emerged from this ambition was a radically futuristic concept, a compact bullpup rifle, firing a new intermediate round, built to take British infantry into the 21st century. It was meant to be lighter, shorter, more accurate, and more adaptable than anything the United States or Europe had in service. When the prototype was revealed, experts genuinely believed Britain was about to leap far ahead of its NATO allies. But what began as a bold symbol of national pride did not unfold as planned. Instead, the SA-80 rifle project slowly collapsed under the weight of rushed development, political pressure, and engineering shortcuts that would haunt British troops for decades. The weapon that was supposed to be Britain's modern masterpiece became an international punchline, and the story of how it happened is one of the most fascinating rises, falls, and unexpected comebacks in small arms history. The origins of the SA-80 can be traced back to the 1970s, when the British Army began searching for a replacement for its aging 7.62mm rifles. The world was moving toward lightweight, intermediate caliber weapons, and research from multiple NATO nations suggested that future warfare would require compact rifles optimized for mobility, rapid fire, and urban combat. Engineers at the Royal Small Arms Factory in Enfield believed they had the answer: a radical new bullpup design that placed the action behind the trigger group, allowing a long barrel in a short overall package. On paper, this promised the holy grail: rifle accuracy with submachine gun handling. Early prototypes impressed military planners. The weapon was small, easy to shoulder inside vehicles, and theoretically more controllable in automatic fire. It looked modern, futuristic even, and the thought of Britain adopting a rifle visually and mechanically unlike anything else in NATO carried a certain quiet national pride. But inside the workshops, engineers already knew the cracks were forming. Funding cuts repeatedly slowed development. Important test phases were shortened or cancelled entirely. Politics pushed the rifle forward, even when designers insisted it wasn't ready. And perhaps most damaging of all, the project was instructed to pursue a brand new ammunition system instead of relying on a proven NATO standard. This added layers of complexity the team did not have the resources to perfect. By the early 1980s, the SA-80, now officially known as the L-85, was pushed into service. Almost immediately, everyday soldiers realized something was very wrong. The rifle jammed under the slightest stress, sand clogged the moving parts, cold weather caused the bolt to freeze, springs weakened quickly, magazines warped or refused to feed, and the polymer furniture cracked far too easily. What had been sold as a high-tech rifle of the future felt more like a fragile prototype dumped into service before it was even finished. When British troops carried the L-85 into the First Gulf War in 1991, the rifle faced its first real test, but instead of proving its worth, it exposed its worst flaws on the world stage. The desert environment was unforgiving, and the L-85 struggled constantly. Soldiers often cleaned the rifle multiple times per patrol just to keep it firing. Stories circulated of rifles locking up during engagements. Foreign militaries observed the failures with disbelief. American troops joked that the safest place to stand was directly in front of a British rifle. Other NATO partners questioned why Britain had rushed such an unreliable weapon into frontline service. The embarrassment was undeniable. Throughout the 1990s, the problems only became more visible. Peacekeeping missions, cold weather training, and even routine exercises highlighted the same failures. The rifle was accurate, yes, but accuracy meant nothing if the weapon could not be trusted to fire when needed. British soldiers grew increasingly frustrated. Many claimed privately they would have preferred older rifles. Others said the SA-80 felt like a political project forced onto them rather than a practical battlefield tool public pressure built. And the Ministry of Defence faced an extremely expensive and humiliating dilemma. Admit defeat and buy a foreign rifle, or attempt to salvage the SA-80. In a decision that surprised many, the government chose to rebuild the rifle rather than replace it. And to do that, they turned to the one company capable of saving it, Heckler & Koch. At the time, H&K was ironically owned by the same parent company as Royal Ordnance, meaning Britain essentially hired a German engineering team to repair a British rifle that had already cost millions. H&K's engineers approached the rifle with a brutal honesty. They strengthened the receiver, redesigned the bolt, reinforced the barrel assembly, improved the working parts, magazines and materials. Nearly every component was rebuilt. What emerged was the L85A2, visually similar to the original rifle but internally transformed. For the first time, British troops had a rifle they could depend on. The L85A2 performed well in Afghanistan, Iraq and other deployments. Soldiers praised its accuracy, reliability and improved durability. Footage from the early 2000s showed troops confidently using the weapon without the constant maintenance required in the past. Slowly, the SA-80 clawed its way back from infamy, and later the L85A3 upgrade pushed it further still. Modern rails, new furniture, reduced weight, and improved ergonomics created a rifle that was finally worthy of its ambitious origins. Yet despite this dramatic turnaround, the reputation of the SA-80 will never fully escape its past. It remains one of the most controversial rifles ever adopted by a major military, not because it was uniquely terrible, but because it represented the consequences of a project driven more by politics and pride than by engineering reality. Britain tried to leap into the future without ensuring it had the foundations to support that leap. Still, the arc of the SA-80 tells a fascinating story. A weapon born from vision, damaged by compromise, widely mocked on the world stage, yet ultimately saved by meticulous engineering and years of refinement. Today, the L85A3 stands as one of the most accurate bullpup rifles in service, a far cry from the flawed weapon that first entered the Gulf War. But its rocky history remains a reminder that even the most advanced ideas can fall apart without proper testing, funding, and patience, and that sometimes a global joke can, through sheer determination, become a modern success